Hello everyone, it is Jazz here, and today I am talking about my to-be-read list for the year of 2018. For those of you that may be new to my channel, I make a to-be-read list for the year every single year, and it keeps me reading widely and also getting to some books that I've been meaning to get to for a long time, and also it's just kind of a fun challenge that I give myself. Now, I usually don't reveal this list until the month of January when the new year actually starts, but I kind of already knew what books I wanted to put on my list for next year, so I decided to just go ahead and make the video now. I decided also to add on an extra little challenge, which is to only compose this to-be-read list of books that I already own, because I noticed in previous years that I did include quite a few books that I didn't own yet, and then I ended up having to get them, and that kind of like defeats the point of creating the to-be-read list. I feel like the point for me should be to like read stuff that I already have. So everything except for one or two exceptions are books that I own. I like to split my to-be-read list into several different sections, and the first section is called my must-read book of the year. In previous years, I've been picking a really challenging read for this, but I kind of don't feel like doing that because I have a feeling that I'm going to be pretty busy next year. So I decided to pick two easier reads for my must-read. So it's the first year with two must-read reads. First must-read is the book Christie by Catherine Marshall. This is the first book in the Christie series, and I have always really wanted to read this book. My mom really talks about how much she enjoyed it, and I've heard a lot of other people recommend it. It's a historical fiction, and I'm just really excited to pick this up. The second must-read book is a book that was actually on like a previous year's reading list and I never got to it. It is The Nancy Boys by Neil Gaiman. Now, unfortunately, I always pick this book up when I'm in a reading slump and then end up putting it down and not completing it. I need to make this one of my must-reads because it is literally sitting on my shelf and like haunting me. It's saying like, read me, read me. Neil Gaiman's your favorite author. You need to at least give it a try again. And I'm thinking maybe in this case, I will audiobook it and see if it goes over a little better for me and that I will actually complete this book in my lifetime. Every year I try to read a new to me Shakespeare play that I have never read before, and this is the one thing that is kind of to be announced in terms of what Shakespeare play I will read. I feel like Shakespeare's history plays like really intimidate me, mostly because like most of the characters have the same name and it kind of like freaks me out. I feel like I should like get over that history intimidation hump and try out one of Shakespeare's history plays, and I'm not sure which one is best. If you have read some history plays by William Shakespeare and you have a favorite, go ahead and recommend one to me in the comments because I'm not really sure where to start with that. The next section is my nonfiction reads. So I decided to only pick one nonfiction read for 2018. And the one that I decided to go with is Stephen King's Danse Macabre, which is, I believe, a nonfiction that kind of goes through the history of horror fiction and things like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. It has been on my shelf for like 4 million years, it feels like. I think I did start it once and just didn't finish it, but it was really interesting, the little bit that I read. Also, prepare yourself because there's a couple more Stephen King things on this list because he's written a lot of books. Next section is my rereads section. So this is another one where I didn't put quite as many things on the list as I usually do because I reread stuff all the time and I really don't need to make a list for that. So I only put a series that I'm planning to start rereading, and that is the Looking Glass Wars trilogy by Frank Bador. In February, I'm planning to buddy read this series with my YouTube buddy over at Max Washington Songs. So I'm really excited to buddy read this. It's definitely one of my favorite trilogies. Next section is all about those series books. So I'm going to prioritize finishing books that are in a series where I'm like just super close to finishing the series, but there are also a few series that I do want to give the first book a try and just see if I am interested in continuing. So it's a little half and half. The first series that I need to complete is the Peter and the Starcatcher series. I have yet to read the third and fourth book. The third book, which is Peter and the Secret of Rundun, and the fourth, which is Peter and the Sword of Mercy. Really excited to finish this series because I do love the first and second book so very much. So I'm sure these will be really exciting. I hope I haven't like messed myself up by taking so much time in between the second book and the third book, but I'm sure it will still work out. Then I want to complete the fifth and final book in the Wrinkle in Time series, Acceptable Time. I've read all four of the previous books multiple times, never seem to get around to Acceptable Time, so I'm going to try to get around to that. I'm actually going to probably reread all of the Wrinkle in Time series before doing that, but I'm just putting Acceptable Time officially on the list. I am super close to finishing Tad Williams's Otherland series, so I only have the third book, Otherland, Mountain of Black Glass, and the fourth book, which is Sea of Silver Light. And I really enjoyed the first and second book, so I'm excited to jump back into these and figure out what's going on with all the mystery and sci-fi stuff that's gonna happen. I'd like to finish volumes 9 and 10 of the Sandman series by Neil Gaiman. I believe 9 and 10 are the last official books in the Sandman series. I think there are a couple more that kind of came out later, but the 10 is like the official end. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I finish 9 and 10, which are the two that I own in digital copies, then I will have the main chunk of Sandman completed, and I could say I'm a for real Sandman fan, if you know what I mean. Next I have Firebird by Mercedes Lackey. This is the first book in the Fairy Tales duology. Now, I have read the second book in the duology, which is The Black Swan, because both of them are kind of based on ballet folklore. But I haven't read this one. Meant to get to it in 2017, just didn't seem to happen. Kind of like that the books in this duology, you can kind of read them in any order because they're separate stories. So then I can go ahead and read this and figure out what she did with Firebird. Next up is a book called Dark Life by Kat Falls. This is kind of an interesting kind of dystopian book, I believe, where people live underwater, and that very much intrigues me. My mom read it. She said it was kind of predictable, but still really fun. So I'm intrigued by this. I believe it's the first book in the Dark Life duology. So if I read it and like it, I will definitely know if I want to invest in getting the second book. Then I have A Long Long Sleep by Anna Sheehan. This is the first book in the Unicorp series. When I bought this book, I don't think it was part of a series. That's how long the book has been on my shelf, years and years and years, and it's just been sitting there and I never seem to get to it. It's supposed to be a Sleeping Beauty retelling with sort of a sci-fi or a dystopian spin, which really does intrigue me, but I'm also kind of not sure I'm gonna end up liking it. So it kind of makes me and that's why I haven't gotten to it yet. But I've decided with this book, I am going to put it on the list, hopefully get to it. If I don't get to it by the end of 2018, then that must mean that I'm just not interested in ever reading it, and I'm going to unhaul it. Recently, I purchased the first book in the Ross Poldark series by Winston Graham, which I believe is just called Poldark. It is the basis of the TV show Poldark. I'm really intrigued to start this historical fiction, because if it's anything like the TV show, I think I'm going to love it. And the last book on my series list is a manga, and it is the ultimate edition of Fruits Basket Volume 1. I've always wanted to try out Fruits Basket. It seems really fun and kind of whimsical. The last section on this list has to do with my miscellaneous standalone books that I want to read. So first up on this list, I have The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I have read a book by every Bronte sister except for Anne Bronte, and I feel like Anne is just like lonely, and I need to get to one of her books. This one sounds really interesting. I think there may be like a crazy person in this, which kind of intrigues me. I obviously don't know a ton about this book, but I kind of want it to be a surprise. And then I will be able to say that I have read at least one book by every Bronte sister. I have Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. Recently got this book, and it has intrigued me for quite a while. I think it's going to be super tragic, but it's going to be super interesting to read, and a lot of people refer to this in pop culture, and then I'll know what they're talking about. It's also a super short book, so it should be a super quick read. Then I have the book Heidi by Joanna Spyri, I believe is how you say her last name. I grew up watching the Heidi miniseries and also the adaptation of Heidi with Shirley Temple, so I grew up with the story, but I never ended up reading the book, and I'm really just intrigued to see what the writing's like and how the story kind of is laid out. And also, if there are any things in here that are like things that maybe aren't in the adaptations. I have here Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. How do you say this man's name? I've been meaning to read this since the movie trailer came out like several years ago. And also I've just heard a lot of great things about this book. I think it's gonna have a really cool writing style. Next up is My Antonia by Willa Cather. Sounds like a cool historical fiction with like a woman that is an early settler, and those stories really intrigue me, so I'm kind of intrigued to try out Willa Cather. Then I have a couple Stephen King books. The first one is the book that he wrote with his son Owen King, Sleeping Beauties. I recently purchased it, and thus I feel like I should get to it fairly soon. The concept is really interesting. It's like if every woman in the world like went to sleep and like what would happen. They're all like in a coma or something. So I'm thinking this one will be one of the first books in the new year that I will pick up, mostly because it is quite a chunker, but we shall see. The other Stephen King read that I would like to pick up is Dolores Claiborne. So I have had this book for a super long time. Like, I don't even remember when I bought it. That's how long it's been in my book collection. I have watched the movie adaptation of this. I quite enjoy it, and I just kind of want to see how the book compares. Also, I feel like, you know, I've owned it for such a long time, and I'm so intrigued by the story that I should like read the book and kind of like get the characters' thoughts and what's going on, like just that extra little tidbit of detail that you don't get in a movie. Then I have this really fun book that I found at a library sale called The Glass House People by Catherine Reese. This sounds like a young adult with sort of a family secret, possible murder mystery thing going on, and I love the title of it, and I'm very attracted to titles, guys. Not book covers. It's all about the titles. So hopefully the title won't do me wrong and this book will end up being really good. Next up I have Hoot by Carl Hyacin. It sounds like it's a like middle grade YA-ish type book that is about a group of kids that try to save some owls, and that is up my alley because I love owls so flipping much. I believe my mom read this several years ago and she really enjoyed it, and I said, yeah, I should go ahead and read that, and then many years passed and I did not read this book, so I need to read it. I try to read my mom's recommendations as much as I can. She's usually right. Another one of my mom's recommendations is Zeke and Ned by Larry McMurtry and Diana Osana. This book sounds like it's kind of a Western kind of book that is centered around some Native American characters, so I'm really intrigued by this. I don't think I've read much kind of like Western-y Native American type books, so maybe I should get to that. And while my mom says that she probably needs to reread it to like fully remember what she thought of it, she does remember that she really enjoyed it, so I'm thinking I might enjoy it as well, hopefully. Last book on this list is another one that has been on my shelf unread for quite some time, probably since I was a teenager, so that's getting sad. And that book is The Photograph by Penelope Lively. I believe it centers around a mystery concerning a photograph, so that's kind of intriguing, and it's really short, so I'm thinking it could be a pretty quick read. I'm just putting it on the list because I don't want to forget about it anymore. That is a list of 30 books that I would like to read in the year of 2018. I, of course, am setting a small goal, which is just to read 15 of those 30 books, or half of those books. And if I read past 15, that will make me super happy as well. But you know, you want to like leave a little wiggle room to just kind of like free read sometimes. So that's what I'm trying to do there. That is it for today, my fabulous peeps, and I will see you all on Thursday. Thank you for watching. Bye!